Thank you, Councillor Jones. Speakers against the motion? Councillor Reid.
I share Mr. Helm's issues on this one, especially when we have a block of 3 acres which could have a house on. I also share Councillor Jones's ideas and the benefits of that. My concern is that we're saying here we've got a reasonable large plot, we could put a house on it, but we're not allowed to because of the zoning, and yet we're going to put basically 2 houses on it. These are, I know we're calling them apartments, but they're livable units. So I just have a difficulty with what could be happening all over the Yass Valley with these different types of buildings and whatever in the long term. I visit the wineries quite often, and they have signs that say "Do not enter the vines," and people are wandering up and down with the dogs even what the signs. So I'm not a lover of signs as such because I don't think the sign by itself does anything. And so I'm really concerned that we may not be able to control the people on these lots. That they may tick all the boxes, but when they get there, they'll be inclined to go for a walk wherever they feel like going. So in a general sense, I'm saying I'm against using the land for that purpose.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Raby.
To Mr. Mayor, I'd like to I would like to speak against the adoption of this recommendation. I have some fairly serious concerns. First of all, as former Mayor Helm did say, he figured it does create a dangerous precedent, and that the title of the land was such it was never to have this sort of occupancy. He further went on to say, and I think I'm paraphrasing quite accurately, that it could well be the end of Helm's Wines. Well, Helm's Wines, I don't know exactly how long they've been there, but in a single amount of time, a lot of labour has gone into that. May I speak from a background of being a primary producer in Yass Valley. In County Queen, parish can go to the north of Yass Valley, on a property called Uruguay, that my grandfather settled over a century. I was a farm or producer. It was therefore a breeding establishment. It's a very delicate process, and certainly when it was lambing, I would go in and visit Councillor Turner on his former manifestations, head of the PP board, and get the phosphates. I would then be acquainted with my responsibilities as a primary producer, such as putting up signs, such as consulting with neighbours. And typically we would do this in unison, so we had a large area. I would be petrified if the integrity of my breeding program was called into question. Next door to Yuba there still is a TSR. Well, in English that's a travelling stock reserve, not a large amount of land. If that title of the property is changed and someone wanted to put 2 serviced apartments there, I would be as concerned, really concerned, damn concerned, and ticked off the back too. For the potential of the damage that could be done to my business, my breeding proposition. I had a pure Maribor flock, fine merinos, closed class flock, and my stud master George Merriman came over each year for 20 years to class out my hoggets. They are a very, very well-bred, productive animals. The thought that there could be a source of dogs and such like nearby to the integrity of my hard work business fills me with an incredible amount of fear. And I am quite concerned on behalf of not only the Vinarons, but the other primary producers in that area. And some of them have been there longer than we've been in our part of the Shire, that their primary production activities could be unravelled. Very concerned on the impact on immediate neighbours. Baits, fox baits are a dangerous thing. I was very, very careful when I put them out to have a good map, intense map. So I knew exactly how many there were and where they were, because I was sure as hell didn't want to be baiting to oblivion one of my sheepdogs or anyone else's. The situation is, as a former primary producer and farmer, that when you saw a stray dog on your property, then let's just say we took action straight away. So I am concerned about the presence of these service departments in what is basically a primary production area. I'll, in conclusion, say that I'm speaking against this recommendation, and I'd hate to have, and I won't have any blood on my hands if it goes wrong, if it goes terribly wrong. And at the end of the day, for the life of me, I can't see why two service departments, notwithstanding what former Mayor Helm said, would be better placed in town, the village of Murrumbateman. For the life of me, I can't see what two service departments are going to add to the tourist financial solvency and growth of Murrumbateman. Thank you. I'm vehemently opposed to this, just so you know.
Thank you, Councillor Roden. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably anything I say is actually surplus to requirements at this point in time, because I'm delighted to find that there are more people in this room who've actually seen the fallacy in this proposal, and then often go against the recommendations of the staff because they make them for a very good reason. But there's a huge fallacy involved in here. This is a block of dirt that doesn't have a dwelling entitlement. Pure and simple, it doesn't have a dwelling entitlement. So when we look at the fine print and we discover the way to get around that, what do? Okay, it's permitted to put in a service apartment, because that's not a dwelling. You can put in a service apartment, and we can have 4 people there. And guess what? In the Yass community over the last 2-3 years, there's been a massive shortage in accommodation. And how many rooms in the Yass Valley have been turned into permanent accommodation by people who normally have visitors who stay for the weekend or stay for the week? They suddenly discover that they can put them in there for 6 months, they can put them there for 8 months, because they're working in the district and they're short of accommodation. I go back a long way, and I remember the early start in Murrumbateman. And colour-bond garages grew like mushrooms all over the Murrumbateman area. You weren't allowed to live in a colour-bond garage. But guess what? There were a hell of a lot of people who lived in there weekend after weekend after weekend in those dwellings, and they finally became very nice houses and people took up residence legitimately. This is wrong. Pure and simple, it's a backdoor for getting around a piece of legislation that says thou shalt not build on this dirt because it's zoned for IU1 primary production. It's not zoned for tourism. Vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Any further speakers for Councillor Ball?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I must admit I've been quite torn with this one. I know it's a tough one, I think, for me, because I also appreciate the comments that have been said. I do want to point out that the issues with the dogs has been addressed, and people who stay there are not allowed to have dogs. I think, for me, I also would like to confirm with the Director of Planning that the use is permissible, like this is all 100% above board as far as like New South Wales planning goes. So it is permissible on this land. And I, for one, have troubles voting against stuff that is permissible on the land, because to me, that can so easily turn into a land and environment court issue, which turns out costing the community an awful lot of money because we're saying no to something that someone is allowed to do. And I know, for me, if I was to buy a block of land and I looked up what I could and couldn't do with that land, as purchasing the land, you say, oh, I can do this, okay, I can do that, and then you come in and you put the plans in and a lot of money's already been spent, put on the table. So to me, I find that really hard to say no to, because the New South Wales Planning Department has said it is okay to do this. I don't understand why a dwelling isn't okay on this, but this is. I don't understand those things, I will admit. That does seem a little bit ludicrous to me. But I know I had a great chat with Director of Planning the other day about this, and asked her a lot of questions as to this is 100% allowed on this land, it's permissible, it's all above board, before I sort of dove into it. So I just wanted to put that forward. Thank you.
Councillor Holden. Any further speak? Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Seeing that a lot of the points have been discussed, I'm against the motion. 3 grounds. The plan of management is really comprehensive, don't doubt that. The implementation of it, I think, is impossible. I just don't think it's going to work. And even if people are online for 24 hours a day, you're not going to get somebody out there in the middle of the night. Depends on how close they are to it. I just don't think that plan of management, although it's been worked on comprehensively, I just don't think it's going to be implemented correctly. As Councillor Turner has already said, we've been here before. This DA came up before as a dwelling, and now we're going to have 2 dwellings instead of 1, and with a transient population. So it's not just one group of people there for years and years and years who can get on well with the neighbours, etc. This is people coming in on the weekends, and you know, we can have a good feeling about people who are coming in and doing this sort of thing. I've done it and tried to be responsible, but you know, people cut corners on occasions, and I think that's what's going to happen. So I just think I just don't think this is a good idea, and 2 dwellings instead of 1 doesn't make sense to me either.
Councillor Jones.
Through you, Mr Mayor, before I close, if I could ask a question of the Director. Last month, Council endorsed with nil against a draft planning proposal at Shore Vineyards for service departments, am I correct?
Yes.
How many did we endorse? I can't recall.
I don't know if we endorsed, there was, through you, Mr Mayor, sorry, I would have to go back to the report, but it was for a planning proposal to allow service departments on that particular class of business, which is Shore's Winery.
Yep, okay.
But it was I think they're proposing several.
So, yeah, okay. So I just wanted to point out that prior to this meeting, all of us agreed that this is a great idea. And then suddenly it's not a great idea because it's located adjacent to a vineyard instead of on the property of a vineyard. So I'm a bit confused as to why the passions are so high on this, but nevertheless, I think it's important to note that there is a housing shortage in Yass Valley. So every opportunity that we get to create more unique opportunities is great. One of the things that I found as a small business operator was finding suitable accommodation, short-term or long-term, for workers is almost impossible. And the need for more accommodation in Murrum Bateman is ever present, both for the transient population of workers that are required to actually harvest the grapes themselves, along with providing opportunities for tourism to grow. Now, Murrum Bateman is only going to grow in this area if we facilitate it. I think this is a great use of a piece of the land that is otherwise a bit of a dead zone. It's not practical to do further agriculture on it, it's not the right size for that. It can't have a long-term dwelling on it, which I think would actually increase conflict, because the longer you're there, the more entitled you feel to your good night's rest and all those things. But I think this is an opportunity to have low impact and a useful, productive way to use this plot of land. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not. However, we've put all the mitigating factors in place in these conditions, and I think with the no pets, the signage required for emergencies, the fencing that's done in due diligence to try and mitigate those potential conflicts between agriculture is a good way forward. If you look at places to the Colburn, where I grew up, in the Hunter Valley, there is accommodation options scattered throughout, peppered throughout that region. And it's only been to the advantage of the vineyards there. So do I want a residential area hard smack up against this vineyard? Absolutely not. But for residents in this location at any one time, and it probably won't be all the time that they're before there, I think is manageable, and I think it's a good use of the land.
Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Butler and Councillor Jones and Councillor Botham. Those against? Councillor Turner, Councillor Abbey, Councillor Reid, Councillor Cameron and Councillor McGrath. I declare the motion not lost.
You'll need a resolution.
Yep.
Through Mr. Mayor, you'll need to have an alternate motion now in relation to this application, otherwise it remains undetermined. So someone needs to come up with some suggestions for dealing with this application. So I presume that the people who spoke against this motion have got some ideas that they want to refuse the DA on grounds of, give me some words.
Inappropriate,
Inappropriate land use under the zoning. Okay. What else?
It's on deleterious effect on surrounding primary producers and production.
Okay, adverse effect on the surrounding primary producers.
And the transaction of their business,
I think it
long established business.
the wording, Mr. Mayor, with respect should be it's not compatible with the primary production zone objectives of item 1.
Sorry, could you say that again? Not compatible with?
It's not compatible with the primary production zone objectives of IU1.
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 So what was the other one? The adverse impacts on the operation of the primary production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Businesses, they love the river.
Producers.
okay.
So we've got two grounds, is that okay?
Any further grounds?
Look at the end of it.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, can we just have the reasons read out again, please?
Refused on inappropriate use, adverse effect on primary producers, not compatible with the primary producer zone
Objectives of the
objectives of
RE1 zone.
RE1.
Good example of having an alternate motion drafted before the meeting.
It is.
Use. Effect on primary producers. And Not compatible with the primary producer zone objectives of farmer.
Mr Mayor, if I can just add,
Zone.
the first paragraph in 6.3 land use conflict and agricultural uses actually says it all, which says is whether the proposed development presents an unacceptable land use conflict with the adjoining nearby agricultural uses, which include a vineyard and extensive grazing. It says it all.
So do you want to add it as this reason?
Yes.
So do you want me to come down and do it again?
Presents an unacceptable land use conflict with the adjoining and nearby agricultural uses.
Okay, councillors, for those, in terms of, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, if that's okay? Yep. So for those councillors who voted against the motion and in terms of putting words forward for the refusal, can you please just have a look at what's written there and ensure that that reflects the basis of your decision?
Can we put that the DAB refused at the start?
Do you want me to- yes.
Yeah, just as we were told.
Can someone just read out the number?
DA number two
DA
three
two
three zero.
239
23.
0239.
So to those councillors, does that accurately reflect your basis for refusal?
Yeah, there's
Councillor
supposed to be 4 points there, isn't there?
Sorry?
There's 4 points there, 4 lines.
Yep.
Thank you.
Inappropriate use of an AU1 zone land, unacceptable adverse impact on surrounding primary producers, not compatible with the primary producer zone objectives of AU1. The development presents an unacceptable land use conflict with the adjoining nearby agricultural users, including a vineyard and extensive grazing.
And in that last line, it should be gap here, that's right, to invert and join.
That wording comes from
Yep.
the
That's-
the report you're having about, yeah.
Okay, moved by councillor Turner, seconded councillor Raby. Prepared to vote? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Councillor Jones and councillor Butler against.
And
And councillor Bottom, sorry. Okay, we'll move on to item 6.4, development application, additions to indoor recreation facility. 16 Hope Street. There is a recommendation.
so
Moved councillor Butler, seconded by councillor Bottom. Any discussion?
through Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question of the director? In the early speakers we heard today, there was a request to consider the removal or the reduction of the noise mitigation. Can I just ask, are these standard conditions that have been placed on it, or is there something very specific in terms of what's being required?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so condition 22 deals with the acoustic barrier, so it details the location for the barrier, the surface density for the barrier, or as otherwise specified by a suitably qualified experienced acoustic expert. That information has to be submitted to council for approval. The request, the condition has been placed on the consent and it is actually detailed in the report, is to address some of the concerns around amenity for the adjoining neighbouring properties. And I think it's worth noting, council, that a similar measure was proposed and recently required for the DA related to the dance studio at 26 Rose Street, also known as Dazzle Dance. So it is in some respects consistent with that decision, council.
Mr. Mayor, just speaking in favour of the development, this is exciting for Yass. Having a learn to swim year-round opportunity for our children is so valuable. As a mother who's been trying to raise 5 kids and 2 grandkids, and learn to swim inevitably comes up every summer, and we're back to square one as soon as winter's gone past. So I congratulate the applicant on their proposal and I wish them every success.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Any speakers against the motion? Prepared to vote? I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Item 6.5, Yass Pool Redevelopment Project Committee. Recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation with a couple of adjustments. I'd like to increase the community members to 5, if I may. And I'd like to change the word from associated with the Yass Swim Club for 3 of those to be a member of the Yass Swim Club. So that allows for 2 Yass Swim Club members and 3 not a member of the Yass Swim Club, 3 councillors, and attending would be the 2 directors and manager of maintenance and senior project officer of recreation assets.
So in terms of the reference of the Yass Pool Redevelopment Project Committee being endorsed with the following recommendations. Sorry, with the following amendments.
Yes, yeah, so
Following amendments of, was it 2?
so 3
swim
councillor,
club?
so the amendment would read the 5 community members,
Yeah, 5 community members, 2 from the swim club,
correct?
and 3 non-members.
Correct.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Any further discussion?
Through Mr. Mayor, just in support of the establishment of this committee. I'm excited to see this committee set up. This is something for the new council to take forth, whoever's on that new council, along with our community members. I'm very passionate about seeing our current pool upgraded and a heated pool be provided for the bulk of our community to use, whether it be for learn to swim, remedial physio, or for lap swimmers to enhance their sports skills, enhance their health and well-being, and to get our tired mums and dads off that Barton Highway trying to get to places like Gold Creek. It is insane, it's costly, and it's an exercise in futility in some ways, because you can't commit the way that you can when it's 5 or 10 minutes down the road or even 20 minutes away, compared with the turnaround time of children late at night getting back or trying to do multiple things on the weekend, getting into the ACT for this service. Communities smaller than us have a heating pool. This is an achievable project if we harness opportunities that come up, and I'm sure that the community has not run out of passion for this project. I want to thank the previous committee, and I note that there is a body of knowledge that committee has generated, and I think as part of the first agenda items of the new committee, it will be to ensure that they're up to speed with the work that's previously been done.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Any further speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 3635 Lynch Road, retaining wall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think in light of the comments made earlier today, and also some queries that I've sent to the executive that have not had the opportunity to respond to the questions raised, I think that it might be worthy to postpone, sorry, let me just look at my wording here, to defer the consideration of this matter to the August meeting so we can get across some of the issues raised here tonight.
So you're moving the matter.
The matter
We defer.
deferred to.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Do we have a second? Councillor Reid?
I think you should say a future council meeting,
Yeah.
because at this stage you don't know what the terms of the caretaker vote are going to be.
Okay, happy to do that.
Any speakers against the motion?
So postpone, so it's that all that? Yeah.
If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I declare the motion carried. 6-7, Yass water treatment plant upgrade.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we can just have a little bit of elevator music while we get the motion up.
Someone like to say something?
So the report be deferred to a future council meeting. So that the report be referred to a future council meeting.
Councillor.
At a future council meeting. Accept the report. Start the report and be postponed. Don't use the word deferred. Deferred, is it postponed? Oh, deferred. So, good, isn't it? That's not here. Go for council, resolution. Second. Yeah, right. Okay.
Was that unanimous, Nick? Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Whatever it was, that's unanimous.
And we're on to 6.7, the Yass water treatment plant upgrade implementation. There's a report and a recommendation. I'd like to move the recommendations. Councillor Botham, seconded Councillor Turner. Any discussion? Any questions? Councillor Botham?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you. I just wanted to bring attention to point number 5, that our application for the National Water Grid Fund has been shortlisted, which means we got through the state level and we're onto the federal level, and that's really exciting. So I just wanted to bring that to attention because keep everything crossed. We've got through the first round, so super exciting. I love having these updates and seeing where this is going. Obviously such a big, important community issue, and it's exciting to be through to the next round. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Botham. Any further comments? Councillor Cameron.
I just have a question of the Director of Infrastructure. Just the engage the owner's engineer, that looks like it's going to take 9 months. I presume that means that there's an enormous amount of work there, or just wondered why it was 9 months, like sort of seems like a substantial period of the timeline. Is that a lot of the basic work? Or?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, these dates on here are actually the milestones, so the engagement of the owner's engineer will be happening in September, October this year.
Right.
9 months through to June 2025 is the completion of the reference design and Section 60 approvals. So
Right.
that's the full reference design itself and getting the approvals to then continue on to the tendering and contract award.
All right, okay. So it is going to take until February 28th.
At this point in time, that's the schedule
Yeah.
program.
I'd like to just make another comment. I was pleased about point 5 that you were saying, Councillor Coughlin, but I was surprised that this was known about a month ago, and I think it should have been announced to the community as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Jones.
So it is exciting to know that we're through to the national level, but I think the disappointment will be great in a lot of ways if we don't get this funding, or if we get limited funding. I wanted to ask a question about how soon would we need to move on securing a loan to lock down the $37 million required to do this project if we don't get it, and when do you think we'll know? Or will we need to start applying for more? Because I mean, our community can't go on like this.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the logical time will be at the point where we are told, no, you're not getting any money, or we're getting less than what you've asked for. That will be the time to start looking at how much loan funding we need and when we need that loan funding. Because we might not need to kick in our money until the build phase, whereas the money that we've got secured through the state at the moment is being used for the design process, the procurement process and that. So that's when you would look at it. When, you know, October this year is probably when October, November will be around when the funding announcement will be made. And then if we're unsuccessful, then yeah, we've got to start looking at when do we need the loan funding.
I imagine that we will continue to look for grants all throughout the process of trying to secure a loan.
Well, I don't think there's too many grant programs running at the present time. There might be a third round of the National Grid, who knows? This is the difficulty. State and federal are both pulling back on a lot of grant programs.
What is the example of other communities who've had to go it alone? I can't recall any. For example, Goulburn had a project delivered from Sydney Water. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, the Goulburn project was done in the Millennium Drought. And that was just a pure political campaign by the mayor of the day who advocated for federal and state government funding to solve the community's water challenges. And basically, the tactic was to shame the government into funding a project rather than see 25,000 people run out of water. They even estimated the amount of water that needed to be trucked in was $1 million, over $1 million a week. And then they still didn't know how it was going to get to the water treatment plant. The other one, it wasn't being trucked in, it was being trained in. They didn't know how to get it from the train to the water treatment plant. So a big hose pipe, but I don't know, but they also forgot that most of the rolling stock that catered for wine had actually been sold off. So there would have been an added cost in terms of getting rolling stock to fill up with water. So that was very much a political campaign. The monies that were provided through that process were not funded out of they became election promises, and then they were badged up into funding programs once the elections were out the way. Most of the other major projects that have been done through the state have been done through a combination of federal or state, or both, and local funding to build important infrastructure for water sustainability for communities. For whatever reason, Yass missed out. Now, my understanding is that Yass got to a point where all of the options for water funding, so anything that they were asking for money at that particular point in time, it got to the point where they couldn't get any answers, and so they hit the board and said, well, we'll start it and we'll keep finding the funding, but as soon as you bit the bullet and said we'll fund it ourselves, nobody else wants to fund it. So I think all the right motives were to try and resolve this issue for Yass, but I think the decision to raise the dam wall ahead of having secured any commitment to funding was probably the downfall of getting funding. So it's a difficult game you play. And there was in the Millennium Drought, there was a number of councils who were advocating for water security because there was an election in the air, and that was, the stars aligned because everyone wanted to solve people's water problems. At the moment, this is Yass's water problem. Not everybody has the same problems as what we have. So we really don't have another election in the air for several years. So basically, that's why we need to look at the programs that are there. The National Grid program came up. Yes, we were unsuccessful the first time around. It looks like we've got a little bit more success this time around. If we're unsuccessful and there's a third round, that's something we're going to have to make a judgment call on, because that means that the project timelines are going to be pushed out even further than what's been indicated here. So I think let's just chill and wait to see what the outcome of that grant funding is. We'll continue to do the work with the money that we have secured already. Get that work done. If the money comes on board from the National Grid, then we can fine tune the program and fine tune the cash flow for the project. If not, we'll have to look at what our options are, and obviously loan funding it is going to be one of those options.
The essential difference between the planning drought
Yeah.
and now was water security as opposed to water quality. We've got plenty of water, it's just the quality. So it's,
Last of two questions. For the director, we've been criticised in the past that we weren't walking and chewing gum at the same times in terms of dealing with the pipelines throughout Yass. Can you briefly note what we're actually doing in the budget for new pipelines and also cleaning?
Absolutely, through you, Mr Mayor. So there is an allocation of $3.05 million which will be allocated to the upgrade of the water reticulation system, which will include, we've already had the assessment done on it, we're aware of where new stop valves need to be installed, what new piping needs to go in there so that we can adequately flush our systems to the standard that we're required to.
Now, in the report to council, it says that the Yass water treatment plant is mostly compliant with the Australian Drinking Water Guidelines. And I'll refer to any sci-fi fans to Douglas Adams, where Earth is described as mostly harmless. So I just wanted to check in with you. Are we drinking safe water right now? And what are your concerns going forward?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So as written in the report there, so there's mostly compliant with Australian drinking water guidelines. However, seasonal and extreme weather events may affect the quality of the raw water that comes out of the Yass River. We're not experiencing any unseasonal or extreme weather events at the moment, so the water is definitely safe to drink.
okay, any further comments, councillors? Not, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. This one is Port Avenue low level reservoir. Their options. Councillor Turner, second councillor Abbey, any discussion? No discussion, no comments?
Oh, through you, Mr Mayor, I think we've, the report speaks to itself that I don't think we want to end up with an exploding asset, the likes which other communities have experienced, and although a more expensive option, I think it's the right thing to do for our community with growing residential area around it.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Councillor Cameron.
I'm just, with the 8 million that it's going to cost, where are we looking for funding for that? Is it looking for grants or is it coming out of reserves or because I think it's only just mentioned briefly there about that.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, the funding for this project will come out of reserves, but in future years. So this
Well, over time.
Yeah, that's right. So this is for the assessment or the options assessment for EFs and the like. Just to need to come back to council with a design and probably for a tender in due course.
Everyone happy? Put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 6-9 revotes and carry forwards from 23-24 to 24-25 financial years. Councillor Abbey, and secondly Councillor Rui, thank you. Any discussion, any questions? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, seems like a fairly straightforward thing to do this, but the revotes are basically something in the budget that was planned for that didn't really get started, and therefore needs to be suggested that it goes forward into the following financial year. I think Councillor Jones made an interesting comment the other night that basically this could be continually rolled over so that a particular project or task may, I won't say never get done, but be delayed for a serious period of time. But it just occurs to me that for both the revotes and the carry forward, I think there should be some information rather than just a list of those projects affected, but also perhaps possibly some explanation of why they haven't been taken forward or why they haven't even started. Thank you.
Thank you. further comments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
It actually reminded me about a note that I'd made to write a motion and I forgot. So
I'm glad I didn't know.
thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, as part of a member on other organisations, including, for example, the Canberra Conservation Trust, we use a traffic light report to show us if a project has stalled. So if it's progressing on target, we're going on the green. If anything's delayed it outside of the expected timeframe, it's amber. And if the project is completely stalled for some reason, it's red, and there's a note to explain why. And I think this could be something that we've used traffic light reports before in council, and it could be something that we could do with revotes. Particularly, it's useful for an incoming council, because then your knowledge is not starting at ground zero. So if everyone is, actually first I'll just take some advice from staff, that creating a traffic light report for the revotes is that kind of information easy to extract, or is that a nightmare?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be a matter for staff to go through the list of the projects that are being carried forward or revoting and put an indication on the lines next to them.
Okay.
And a note.
Are we looking at a list under?
Not a big list.
It's not a big list.
Okay, alright, so doable.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do recall the council didn't have traffic lights at one stage.
We didn't like traffic lights that didn't have notes.
It was a rhetorical question.
Okay.
You certainly
Sorry,
could.
I'm not on council, but no.
You're not voting in favour?
No, I'm pro traffic lights.
Okay,
For all reports.
alright, so that the amendment be that generated
Yeah. I need some wins.
Can't win them all.
Through Mr. Mayor, if I could ask for some direction from the CEO, is this required as a report back to council, or would you like me to add it to the end of this? Because I'm to apply it to everything.
There is a series of reports through Mr. Mayor. There's a series of briefing papers that we send out to you and progress reports against delivery programs. I agree with the director. Traffic lights are very simple. They're either off course, they're on track, or they're well ahead of the game. So look, it makes it simple, it makes it consistent between all of the reporting documents that we need, and including the annual report at the end of each council year. So look, we will just do traffic reports, and I think that will be better. And there will still be explanations about why that's been rated as red, amber or green.
I'm happy to have a magenta for projects that are delivered early or
Okay.
under
What
budget.
about gold star?
They will have a gold star.
Fabulous,
I feel this is a watershed moment.
We got all we need, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, councillor Costa.
Thank you. I did say I was being very bold. But I feel it's good.
So how did her say with permission?
Yes,
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried.
Thank you, councillor Cameron, for reminding me.
That's all right.
The
Enjoy the
investment report, item 16. There is recommendations, and I'd like to move councillor Lee and councillor Turner. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
Sorry. I'd just like to point out again that the two investments totaling $2 million were mature, and they haven't been redeposited in any sort of way. So over the last 4 months, that's $6 million that has been taken out of the council investment to fund council operations, which may be fine, but seriously, this must start to be having some sort of impact on total interest gain. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, they are not unexpected, however I can also advise that we did do $3 million worth of investments in early July, which will be next month's report.
Thank you.
Any further, councillor Raby?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, probably to the Director of Corporate and Community, or perhaps the CEO. The report we get here, we have provided to us by the Governor each month. That's all well and good, but it doesn't seem to me a lot of the time sort of mainstream local government consideration. But nevertheless, it's there. So my question is, if I could have some guidance there. These sort of reports are often, in the context of inflation, referring to, inflation being higher than the target range of 2.3%. So my question is, where, if anywhere, is enshrined in immortality that should be the target range, as opposed to 3 to 4% or such the like? If anyone knows.
Through you, Councillor Abbey, that's a question for the Reserve Bank, I'm afraid.
Okay. I feel better now.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.11. Review of investment policy. There's a recommendation. Councillor Jones, Councillor Abbey, thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Abbey.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, the Director of Corporate and Community. I had in the attachments had sort of a skim through the policy, it's quite detailed. One of the realities is in our current financial situation, it's not a preferred circumstance, we use a number of consultants, so that's not what I'm on about. But my point is, in terms of this rather comprehensive policy, investment policy, and a very important one, can I assume, or I presume, that these consultants that have some financial responsibilities are made aware of and are schooled in some of the Yass Valley investment policy?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, I've had quite a thorough discussion with them when they commenced with us regarding our investment policy.
Thank you.
Further questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.12. 2024 Yass High School Youth Forum. There is a recommendation.
So moved.
Moved Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Hoffman. Any discussion?
Through you, Mr Mayor. If the Director would like to speak, and then I'll.
I'll ask the Director to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight that it was a very good activity, and both the high school principal and myself are reviewing the recommendations to see where we can take those forward, including with the youth council, etc. But the principal would like me to highlight just a couple of points that he feels that he has concerns with some of the wording of the recommendations. Recommendation number 7 is actually outside of the school scope. They have procedures in place for external organisations to utilise the school facilities, and a user agreement needs to be completed and the hall is made available. Currently, most sporting bodies utilise in wet weather, i.e. touch, rugby union and league, netball, rugby union and league, netball and redbacks. Yes, gymnastics use it regularly for trampolining, and there are semi-regular karate tournaments. PCYC use it every Wednesday morning, and he believes that it's an unfair recommendation based on limited data set within the triangulation of data from the school. Recommendation 9 is generally okay, but schools don't have policies, they have procedures that they follow the Department of Education policies. And they have procedures to enact these policies in the school, and he thinks that it also needs to be expanded to include government and non-government agencies with specific reference to New South Wales Health. Recommendation 10, they already do but could be adjusted to offering young people more or further social groups and activities, which would be a better representation of the point. And number 11, he's not sure where this one comes from because there is actually already soap in the bathrooms and it's not mentioned throughout the report at all, so it sort of comes out of blue. And a noteworthy point would be that currently there's no mention of New South Wales Department of Community and Justice or New South Wales Health in the recommendations. So he just would like the councillors to know that we are working through it, and there's some of the initial comments.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to reiterate that Yass High School is very active in a lot of these spaces already, and I don't think the report accurately reflected that, particularly in the mental health and anti-bullying space, as well as during school hours, their ability to address boredom. They have a number of excellent social clubs that enhance both that issue as well as enhancing social opportunities. So I think it might be pertinent for us to note that YHS has extensive programs already covering a lot of these issues that councillors continue to work with, and if we can include that in the recommendation, that we acknowledge that, sorry, I'll just slow down. Yass Valley Council acknowledges that Yass High School here.
The third point.
Yep, sorry. Yeah. Just say YVC acknowledges.
Maybe, Robin, if you tab, you go into a different box.
Just start typing, we'll fix the format later.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the council acknowledges YHS has extensive positive programs aimed at youth already operating. And if we just go back up and choose that one, extensive, instead of extensive.
We'll fix the format later, that's fine.
Okay, any further councillor?
Yeah, just to comment quickly that I was recently at a conference for councillors, Australian-wide conference in Canberra, and what was interesting, this program sounded like a really good day, as it was, but there's a lot of interesting things happening with youth. One of the ideas was a pilot program called Young Mayors, which I've promised the director to get some information about. This project happened in 6 different areas. The one that they talked about a lot was in Mackay. They had 1,500 kids voting between the ages of 12 and 17 for a Lord Mayor and a council. They had 29, I think they had 29 candidates, probably more than we're going to get in September. But the interesting thing was that they just had a whole lot of people voting, and eventually they elected a council. They set them up for a year, and the bonus was a $10,000 project that they could implement at the end, if they came up with a substantial idea. And it was rolling over out of the pilot program, so we should be trying to get in contact to find out more about this. So it was a really good program.
Thank you, councillor Cameron. Everyone happy? I'll put the motion, all those in favour, those against, declare the motion carried. 6.13, get New South Wales Get Active Green Program. There is a recommendation. move the recommendation, Councillor Reid, Councillor Potham. Okay, any discussion? No? Councillor Campbell.
Oh, I just, I'm sort of tempted to sort of say, let's not accept the money, but I think I've been shot on the way out, or beforehand. I'm just sort of noticing, the thing that sort of interests me a little bit is the rail trail, $700,000 to do the design and that, and I think we have had a study so far, a business case, that basically sort of suggested it wasn't really a goer, like costing 11 million and not getting anything like that over a substantial period of time back. So the cost benefit analysis was not good. I do take the point that it does have significant benefits in linking the new development at Yarra to the main part of town. The issue for me is that, you know, you're going to be looking for $11 million in funding at some stage, and I just don't think, you know, are we going to get that? Don't know. It just seems to me a significant amount of money for a project that may never happen.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Through Mr Mayor, I think council does a lot of projects and delivers a lot of projects that don't have an economic return on them, that a community and social and wellbeing return, which I think is important. Yes, it's got a big price tag, but certainly some of the grant programs that we've seen lately have got big amounts, that they're big chunks of money that they're actually giving out to local communities. So who would have thought that a community like Bowning would have got $1.3 million? So there are some big chunks of money around. It's a matter. It's all in the timing. If you've got the plans in the bottom drawer,
And there may be other options apart from the major expenditure of the
Yeah, you could-
rail bridge.
Could do parts.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Through Mr Mayor, I'm just speaking to the rail issue, the Yass rail trail, with the potential of how Yarra could grow. You know, the first stage, I think we released 64 or approved 64 lots. It has the potential to put something like 600 lots in there.
700.
Or 700, thank you. So that's a significant new section of Yass that could be connected to our CBD. And looking at the statistics of how that could enhance the traffic, the business traffic to the main street, I think that's an important connection. But moreover, I think we learned in COVID that safe places to walk was certainly a desirable and important thing for our community. And having done up Rosyth Street with a pram and also with bikes, I know that that's not something that you ever want to do on purpose. But we put those in the cart and we go down to the flat and go around the river where it's beautiful and flat. Now this is absolute gold in terms of redeveloping for a pedestrian because it is, for the most part, pretty much flat. You know, trains love something that's flat. And that's the way it was built. The flow-on benefits of dealing with the issues that have been unresolved for I don't know how many years on Dutton Street in terms of that intersection, which has dual right-hand turning lanes, a massive rail in the middle of it where the grass grows and we get so many complaints during summer, and connecting that part of our town with recreation space cannot be overlooked. And you don't build a hospital to make money, and you don't build a swimming pool to make money, but the community really loves it. And I think this is a great opportunity to have plans in the bottom of the drawer. If I can get the Director of Planning to talk to us about the construction of the Bowning Active Circuit. If only we've got a grant like this for our master plan or lacking in master plan Main Street application, where we just tried to go for something basic like electrics and we couldn't do anything because we didn't have a master plan. what a golden ticket this has become to have master planning processes in place. And I just want to say thank you so much to the planning team and also to our road safety officer for the hard work in getting the grant application written. Thank you, Mira.
Yeah.
So if you can have the director speak about what it's actually going to construct, is it just pathways or are there any enhancements along the way?
Through you, Mr Mayor, just acknowledging the work of the strategic planning team, but also the road safety officer and the engineering services team, and the work of the recreational assets team. So it is around constructing pathways to allow for the Bowning community and visitors to move around Bowning and connecting. It'll connect the public school town centre to the recreation area. So this is all identified in the master plan through the work undertaken by the road safety officer. And in addition, the Bowning community have actually received $80,000 to undertake amenity type improvements also in the Bowning village. So we're very fortunate in that the recreational assets team and environmental and engineering services team will be working together to deliver this work that's funded through this active transport grant, and also the money that's received by the Bowning community for the amenity improvements. So we're doing it this way to ensure that the $80,000 that the Bowning community has received is well used and that it's not duplicating works that are funded through the Get Active grant. And we're actually meeting with the Bowning Progress Association, I think it's next week, to run through the project, and internally they're already collaborating around how to deliver the project. But look, the master plans are invaluable in these types of situations, and so I really hope that we are able to support some of our other villages and the Yass Main Street in terms of accessing funding for future projects, and just to acknowledge that it's just not a planning and environment project, but also an infrastructure and assets project, and we're so excited to be working together. Aren't we, Nathan?
Okay, Councillor Bob.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to also mirror the comments that Councillor Jones said about how wonderful I think this opportunity is for the town, particularly for recreation and providing places where people can go and exercise and get together and do things. I also just wanted to add the significance of the bridge. So that bridge to me is one of the most photographed things in Yass. It is iconic, and at the moment it's quite embarrassing, the condition it's in. And I think it's such a shame that we can't use it and enjoy it. And I would love to see people being able to use it and enjoy it. And I think that is a major part of this. And it's like when you go to places and you see like there's significant landmarks, it's nice to not just photograph it from a distance, but to walk across it, to enjoy it. And I do appreciate that a large chunk of that $11 million was because of the bridge and the condition it's in and making it accessible and usable for the community as well as tourists. I think it would really put Yass on the map on a tourism level. I do appreciate it's not the longest rail trail. I know other areas have much longer and more fancy ones than we do, but I think that bridge would really be such a draw card, and I think it's a shame at the moment that we use it in our tourism areas, but we can't actually use it and we can't enjoy it and really showcase it, because I think it is a piece of our history that deserves better, and it deserves to be maintained, looked after and enjoyed by generations to come. So that's what I appreciate of the rail trail funding coming on board.
Thanks, Councillor Bob. No further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion carried. Someone like to move on both the end of Councillor Turner and Councillor Jones. Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion carried. Notice of motion. Councillor
Oh, those two.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Prior to the meeting, I have distributed an amendment to the chief executive comments to all the councillors. There's a sheet on your table. Originally in the papers, we had said that we had undertaken a quarterly budget review in 2023, but we hadn't. So, but it doesn't change the fact that the August 24 meeting will be provided with the final draft of the 23-24 financial statements. They will provide with all the information.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? Councillor Cameron?
I think you better move it.
Thank you.
If I can do that, I'll just move the motion, please. Second that. Thank you, Councillor President. Thank you. Look, thanks for that, making that amendment. That's appreciated. Look, I just think we're coming up to an election period, and we're going to have people putting up their hand to run as candidates. I think it's just reasonable and fair to have a fourth quarterly review of the finances. I would think that this, and I may be proven wrong from the director's point of view, that this would be fairly straightforward. We've done a first, second, third quarter review. I would have thought that this was pretty much ongoing, fill in the boxes sort of thing to some extent, but also to sort of have a look at the financial benchmarks, etc., and just see how we're going. I just think that's fair to let people know, if they are thinking of running for council, to have a bit, some sort of reasonable idea of the current situation as of the last quarter. I think the idea of the annual report, I think annual reports to my mind are fairly sort of daunting sort of statements, and you know, you need a sort of a fine tooth comb to start going through them in any sort of reasonable sort of way. I think the fourth quarterly budget review would be a much more accessible document rather than looking at the whole year. So yeah, I think it would be beneficial for people to have that before they've decided to run for council or not run for council. I think that would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion.
Oh, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor. A question to the Director of Corporate and Community Services. So you're providing the annual financial statements in that meeting. Is it possible to pull out the quarterly budget review as, so it sits by itself, so it's easy to see? Is there any possible way that we can have that on its own to meet this motion?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the resources that we have in the financial area are focusing on the external audit and the 2023 annual financial statements. We do not have the resources available to do a quarterly budget report, and it's not as simple as just pulling out a couple of numbers and putting them in a table.
So the annual statements will be the position at the end of the total year.
Is there any benefit through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director, of seeing the quarter standing alone in terms of a financial document? I would have thought yes.
Through you, Mr Mayor, from my perspective, no, because the 30th of June perspective is you've had the third quarter and the end of financial year statement reflects the last quarter. And I'm sorry, but the audit office is a priority more than a fourth quarter report.
Councillor Turner.
No, Mr Mayor, really on the point of being totally pedantic, if anyone cares to read that screen up there, they'll discover that the CEO, Chris Berry, is actually not a councillor.
Correct.
Already had
My version.
It's a promotion, it's a promotion.
This
No,
unfortunately is
I'm going to order there, folks.
Sorry, my version has Councillor Cameron.
yes. So does mine, because one of the screen.
On the website, through you, Mr Mayor, on the website, it's you.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
through Mr. Mayor, one more question for the director. In terms of this being a usual provision if we had a CFO, would that be accurate if we had an in-house CFO? This would be provided as per their charter, or this is not a regular?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, would be any different.
Further discussion?
Question, who seconded the
Councillor Platten,
Councillor Yass.
with many thanks. Thank you.
Okay, no further discussion? Would you like to reply, councillor Cameron?
Yes, I will. Just
Yes.
briefly.
We're going to have an early night, so.
Looks like it's going to be fish and chips today. Yeah, look, I just think it is a resourcing issue to some extent. I think and it comes up in one of the questions that Councillor Butler has raised about finances and the number of people who are working in the area and people being brought in on a needs basis. Well, I think this is a need that should be met, and I think it would be beneficial to potential candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cameron. I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Sorry.
Councillor
I hope you're going to vote with me.
Councillor Cameron, councillor Jones, councillor Butler. In favour? Those against? Declare the motion lost.
Sorry.
We just need to recapture that though.
Those for the motion, councillor Jones, councillor Butler, councillor Cameron.
Yeah.
Those against?
Thank you.
Okay.
That'll be
We'll
good.
fix it after too.
It's a deep voice. Yeah, thank you.
I do get a lot of advice from
It's a deep wish to become a councillor. Thank you.
Okay, notice of motion, community halls.
Through
Councillor Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move this motion, knowing full well that it may be amended within a breath of me finishing the sentence. So if I could move the following motion that you see on the screen, and hopefully seek a seconder.
Have a seconder.
Through Mr. Mayor, if it doesn't get a seconder.
No.
Oh,
I was going to say, it's an easy process. If it lapses, I've got another one ready to go.
Okay, you can beat me now.
All right, through you, Mr. Mayor, just briefly, I think while this isn't the perfect motion, and I'm sure it will be adjusted shortly, I think it's important that we have a good discussion about what we're going to do about this situation, because while we had good intentions of weaning organisations off rate subsidy, for example, those that could employ full-time staff and run bars at their venues, etc. What we didn't realise in throwing the baby out with this bathwater is that the ground shifted for a lot of these organisations, in the sense that the value of the land has jumped astronomically. And I don't judge the decision to do what we did at the time, because I don't think anyone was expecting the value of rates to go from 1,000 to almost 4,000 for a small village hall, one of which has playground on it and public amenities block on it. How we can justifiably look at this as being just a business rate is beyond me. So I'm happy to seek for any amendments that are required.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move an amendment to this. I fully support the concept of this. I'm just going to hold my iPad, sorry, my lines are a little bit bad. I fully support the concept that's within this motion, but I think just in light of learning of the ability for these organisations to be able to seek charity status, I think that should be fully investigated before we move to work on this motion. So I would, and I can send this through, I would suggest that the amendment would be 1, community halls. A report be prepared for council to consider an appropriate mechanism within the existing community financial assistance grants program or other method to offer a donation back of general rates charged to community hall associations should any not obtain charity status, which is rate exempt. That all community hall associations that register with council their charity status within the 2024 calendar year be considered exempt of rates from July 2024. And 2, not-for-profit and community groups. A report be prepared for council to consider an appropriate mechanism within the existing community financial assistance grants program or other method to offer a donation back of a percentage of the general rates charged to volunteer-run not-for-profit groups that provide community benefit. And 3, Bowning Hall, a 12-month retrospective donation back of 50% of the 23-24 rates bill be given back to Bowning Hall, considering their difficulty in paying rates due to the ongoing excessive value given by the valuer general.
We haven't got
We
two,
haven't
two,
got
we've got
that
two there. We haven't got 2 up there, not the 3rd one.
Do you need me to read it again?
Just, through you, Mayor, just a comment. You've already committed your entire financial assistance grants program for 24-25. So it,
Through you, Mr Mayor, they have actually been paid.
Right.
so there is no funding
the
left
assistance
in that
grants.
fund for any further grants. So the source of funding, maybe you're better off not talking about the community financial assistance grants. You just focus on other methods of donation.
Because they're fully expended, so it covers there.
No.
No. Is it into the future? Like future community
We'll just get
financial
number
assistance?
three.
The future community grants are the following financial year. You do them annually. So
Rates are up now.
you award the grants in the 23-24 financial year, and they get paid in the first month of the financial year to the successful applicants, so that they have a full year to deliver whatever their project is. That means you don't have any more money until the following year.
Are you happy to
So-
do that? Yeah.
I'm happy to delete that.
Yeah, so
If it's not a possibility.
Just
to consider
don't.
a method to offer.
Yeah, just another method to offer a donation back. So we have to try and work out something.
The motion does say, or other method.
Yeah, but
No
you grant, there's no point in saying,
Mechanism.
use the community financial grants when there's no money left in it, because you've already awarded it.
Councillor Cameron.
Through you, Mr Mayor, a question of process. I've got a foreshadowed motion. So does that take precedence to the amendment?
Through Mr Mayor, so the amendment needs to be debated in your debate. In the debate, you can foreshadow your motion,
Thank you.
I'll second. And if it gets not good,
then you've got the floor.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second the amendment for the purpose of discussion.
So we've got an amendment, moved Councillor Butler, seconded Councillor Turner. Okay, we need to go up to number 1, Robin, as well.
Just put the word amendment before.
Before number 1?
Yeah, just go down. Right.
No?
Fix the format.
Okay.
And then you just need to take out the existing community financial assistance grant.
It's
instead of
one
other
of those, we
efforts
could do
to-
this one too.
Non-existent?
So take from mechanisms.
So, it's that.
The report could be read out for council to consider an appropriate method to offer a donation in the general rates. That's okay.
So, Ms. Mayor, if you're happy to have someone speak to it, I'm happy to speak. Okay. Through Mr. Mayor, I think knowing that as many as who can will be seeking the charity status, and there's at least 12 weeks while we wait for that, I think it's good that we offer a safety net in case for any reason a community hall association falls short, or something is wrong with their application and it drags on. We must remember that these are volunteer-run organisations. Not everyone has the skill set to be across everything. Let's give them peace of mind now. We know that as a charity, we're going to have to give them 100% of the rate. We're going to waive the 100% of the rates, which doesn't come out of thin air. I recognise that's got to be paid by other ratepayers. There is just one set bucket of rates. It's how we divvy them up is the magic of how the pie is made. And there could be a future opportunity for the new incoming council to review all the rates and subcategories, but that's not a direction that I think we can safely do without the kind of homework that's required. And I acknowledge that the Director of Corporate and Community Services might be looking at that around November, December. I think in light of knowing that they'll be getting charity status, I think we should look at making sure that whenever they get that status during this year, that can apply to their 2024 rates, particularly for those that weren't aware of that possibility under the legislation. I certainly wasn't, and I don't think it's something that anyone at council was trying to hide from anyone. It's just not, it's corporate knowledge that I didn't have to share with any association, so you don't know what you don't know in some instances. So for this point one, I think it's important that we look to what we did before in terms of providing an opportunity for these organisations to not just scrape the barrel and pay their rates only, but to actually look to the maintenance and the opportunities to use their funding that they do get, and plus acknowledging that they still have to pay their water and sewage, etc. But in the case of Bowning particularly, I think we really have to look at that case on its merits. It already has community assets on its land. It has a playground, it has public amenities. While they do technically own the amenities because it's on their land, we already do the maintenance for that, and it's fully accessible by the public. This really doesn't fit the model of a business at all. For the not-for-profit and community groups, I think we have an opportunity to support these organisations, not with 100% donation back of their rates, but enough to allow them to survive and to hang on to their asset and to maintain it. Because if they don't, if their last port of call is us, then we are left holding that asset and that land, and that's going to cause problems for us as well. I think volunteer run with passionate people who are proud of their establishment, who look after it, has a range of benefits that cannot be capsulated in this motion. But I recommend to you and I implore you, let's get this back on the table to consider. It may not come back to the August meeting, it may be the new council, but I think we need to bring it back and have a good look at it.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, just a comment. It doesn't automatically come back to council if they are unable to pay their rates. It goes to market. And if council decides to buy, then council they make that decision. Or if they gift it to council, then that becomes a decision for council, but I'm not recommending either of those things because you've already got many assets that we struggle to maintain. So the process would be for unpaid rates, there will be a process there where it gets to a point where then it gets sold to anybody, and the portion of unpaid rates is paid into council's coffers, the rest of the money goes to the state government.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think in this instance, we would find that in response to the CEO, that if we were to let the situation inbound and get to that point, we could pretty much all hang up our hats as councillors to let a wonderful community asset be sold on the open market, beggars belief, and I think we would have not just egg on our face, but I think I'd have to walk away from my role on council. I just really feel that if we let that happen, by not doing anything, we've failed in our duty to the community.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Any further discussion?
Could I just have a clarification? The original motion, have we just simply agreed to change that motion, or were we moving an amendment to the motion?
It's an amendment. It's largely,
It looks like.
I think there's some similarities between what the motion that councillor Jones has put forward, and these are amendments to, I guess, fine tune it and get it more focused.
So all we're going to vote on is whether or not we agree to the.
You vote on the amendment. If the amendment is successful, if the amendment's successful, that becomes the motion. Okay. If the amendment's unsuccessful, councillor Cameron has the floor because he's got a foreshadowing motion.
We don't know what the foreshadowing motion is.
No, he's
All will be reviewed.
he's foreshadowed it already.
He's pounded dry.
He's foreshadowed.
However, we don't know what it is.
No,
I'm coming there.
I don't know what it is.
I don't think you've finished your discussion yet, so you might want to foreshadow his motion.
Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, look, I'm probably being very simplistic here. I just think the motion, the original motion, the amendments, I can see their intention and they're good intentions and they're trying to do the right thing by everybody, but you know, my foreshadowed motion is much simpler. I've got two parts to it. That Yass Valley, I'll read it out for you.
Thanks.
That Yass Valley Council no longer charges rates to our community halls, and the community halls be reimbursed for any payments made in the last financial year, which I'm not sure if they have or they have not. B, that a full review of council charges to all community-run organisations be done after the election by a group comprising council staff, councillors and community groups, with a draft policy to be presented to the new council in time for the next financial year. So two parts to that. First part, let's cut to the chase and basically say, as has been pointed out, these are assets that are very, very important to the community. I think they should be encouraged to get the volunteers working to make sure that these are places where people can go in times of emergency, in times of social activities, whatever. And the Bowling Hall in particular is a great hall, and so is the one at Gundaroo as well. So I just think we can, bite the bullet and say, hey, we don't ask these people to pay rates anymore. And I know that goes against a motion a few years ago that was trying to sort of cut that sort of donation stuff down. And the second part is really to review all the council charges for community-run organisations, so that we have a policy that's consistent, that doesn't get out of hand, and is really trying to encourage community activity. So I'll be voting against the amendments.
Thank you, councillor Cameron.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a question of the director, sorry, I should stand. It's my understanding that you can't just not charge rates.
That is correct. You must charge rates. Has to be a donation.
Councillor Turner.
Well, that was
Okay.
that was my question.
Sorry.
You can sit down, you sit down.
I haven't finished, with great respect. The exemption is one thing. There was a suggestion made by one of the citizens of Barney that there should, in actual fact, be another rating level. Can I ask the director, what is the principle behind that, and is it legal? I appreciate it is illegal for us to say, no, you can't, we're not going to rate you have to be rated. What is the procedure that allows us to create another rating level or rating for community cause, community volunteer units, whatever?
Thank you, Councillor.
It is not a preferred method, and it will be like applying for a special rate variation. We would have to go to the minister for permission to create a new subcategory. The subcategory would still be rateable, so I think you're defeating the purpose. They already get rated. It's a matter of whether you're going to provide them with a donation and add that expenditure to your your budget or not.
Through Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, under the current legislation, business can have, residential can have subcategories, but they're still rateable. And we've inherited, our rate structure at the moment includes the high level 4 categories and then subcategories for different localities. So for instance, the business rate in Yass, business rate, Sutton and Gundaroo are a subcategory, and they have their own rate. They have a base rate and then they have their own rate. So, but if you to change the legislation to create a new category of rates, you are defeating the purpose. They're still paying rates, but it'll just be called, I don't know, community halls or not-for-profits or something like that, but they would be rated, and the question then is on what basis are they rated, and I think the simplest solution is if you agree that they should be, that if they're rated, they get charged rates, and if you believe that in the interests of the community benefits, if you like, of that facility deserves to have not to pay rates, that means we need a line item in our budget. If we decide that it's a 50% reduction, then we need a line item in our budget. So we are paying the difference, whether it's they pay 0, we pay it all, or whether we pay 50%, they pay some, we pay some. So that's the much easier way to do it than rather than trying to create a new rateable category that really makes no difference, because you're still going to have to rate them, and you rate them whatever they are under that category. It'll be tied to land value, and land values will continue to go up.
You still have the distortion, wouldn't you? Land values.
Doesn't make any sense.
Land values the problem. Councillor Paul.
UCB.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I'd just like to clarify, because I'm actually starting to get a bit confused, I must confess. To me, I'd love to be corrected if I'm wrong, the original motion from Councillor Jones was actually about dealing with Bowning and the tennis club, those two groups. The amendment from Councillor Butler is a much bigger boat, which takes in basically community groups and not-for-profits, which I don't know how big that is, and I don't know, to me, I have questions on that of what impact that has on our already suffering bottom line. I just have a concern about that. I'll ask you a question in a second about that. Obviously, these community halls are an extremely important asset to our communities and loved and used by many. I'd also like to just throw into the mix that a lot of communities actually do these community halls really well, and they're used a lot by the community, they're run as a business, they get grants. We've seen others in our community that not only have grants, but they have a lot of people in their progress associations who put a lot of effort into these community halls. And I think we could even take a bit away from the other community halls that are shining and loved by the communities and really represented with this. I think for me, I want to come back to, I think the issue that was originally on the table is we need to find a solution and help the Bowning community at the moment, and we need to help the tennis club. They're the two groups who've come to us to ask for this. I also agree that this does need to be looked at, our rating categories and all of that, but I don't think that's a decision for here and now. I think that's a really big fish. And I don't feel like I have enough information to throw that fish across the table right now. I think that is even something that's better off with a new council that's actually looked at with reports, financial implications, and all sorts of stuff that would actually, if we made that decision tonight, I don't know what the financial implications are, or how many not-for-profit community groups do we have? Are we talking about 2? Are we talking about 100? I actually don't know the answer to that. So I don't think the amendment actually, I don't have answers for what that means financially. Am I correct? You're nodding? Yeah, okay. So to me, the actual original motion as it stands is actually answering to the two groups who've come to us and spoken to us tonight, and that's the answers that we needed to provide sooner rather than later. I also want to acknowledge that with them going for the charity status, to me, to make a decision based on their rates, which that's going to basically give us the answer anyway, so I don't understand why we're making a decision about something where we need to wait for a decision on that before, like if that obviously falls through, we're going to need some action, but we won't know for a few weeks, so I don't know what the answer is there. But I think making even Councillor Cameron's alternative foreshadowed motion thing also encapsulates a whole lot of questions about financial stuff that wasn't on the table and wasn't part of what we were trying to sort out and make a decision on for that motion. So does that make sense, or did I just confuse everyone else?
Yes.
Through Mr. Mayor, there are 5 halls that are community owned and operated. Gundaroo Literacy Institute, Gundaroo Soldiers Hall, the Bowning Hall, the Bynalong Hall, and the Bookham Hall. No, it's on Crown land, it's on public land, so they don't pay rates. Okay, so there's only 5. Two have already got charitable status, and they are now working through with council to recognise that charitable status so that they're exempt from rates. Bowning are going down the same track, and they've just told us tonight that it's about a 12-week process, and if they're successful in getting that, they will be exempt from rates. So far, I've heard from Bookham, who've said they will consider it, and I haven't heard from Bynalong at this particular point in time. But you know, it'll be like a deck of cards. They will certainly, if they find out, and they have because I've told them, that they will be potentially applying for rates. There's only 5, okay? There's 5 community halls. If they're successful with getting charitable status, that means they're exempt from rates under the current legislation. They don't pay rates. And based on what was in the original motion and what's up there at the first part of the motion, I think covers those 5 groups, 2 of which have already got charitable status.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is not-for-profit community groups that own land. They're not exempt from rates. They get rates. So I'm not aware of how many there are. The only one that I'm aware of is the Yass Lawn Tennis Club. They own the land. They have a considerable rate bill. They are a small organisation, and clearly they they will be having trouble going forward in the future. So the question then is that for that group is what options are there? Now there's, under the current legislation, there are no options. Other than council stepping in and saying, we will pay all of their rates on their behalf, or we'll pay a portion of the rates. So I think that part is still consistent with the original motion in a number of respects. So while the original motion was really about the tennis club and the bounding ball, I think really it should have been looking at all of the balls that are community-owned land. And the only not-for-profit organisation that owns its land that I'm aware of is the lawn tennis. No, Divine Church is owned by 4 people. It's not owned by the church. If it was owned by the church, it would be exempt. But it's not. And there's a lot of history attached to that, and there's a lot of that's got its own challenges, and it's not. So it is a rateable property. We did a number of years ago actually petition the Minister for Local Government to say that if it looks like a church, it must be a church. So the answer was no, it goes back to the ownership. So
Okay,
not the land.
I think time's moving on, I think we need to make some decisions, councillor Yass.
Through Mr. Mayor, if I can answer Councillor Pothin's questions about the differences between the original motion and the amendment. In the original motion, the first part of it was calling for a village hall and community group rate release donation policy. So the community group would have picked up, like in this amendment, it picks up the Yass Lawn Tennis Club in that. And your answer as to how many groups might be impacted on this, if we look back to 2019, where we actually froze frozen the rates at the 2017-18 level, I did have a look and checked in with our director, because I didn't want to open up Pandora's box. I wanted to know who would fall into this category. Previously, it would have been the halls. The CWA rooms were not ever charged rates, probably because they're on community use land. The Gundaroo police paddocks are charged rates under this policy, and received a donation back. So this is the donations back page I'm looking at. Yass Golf Club and Bowling Club were in there, and the Binalong Golf Club. They wouldn't be captured in this new program because we're looking at volunteer-run organisations. And there aren't very many underneath that. We've got the Bowning, the Bowning tennis courts vacant land was not charged. Was not given a donation, I should say. And then the Gundaroo Literary Institute was. So apart from those golf clubs and the Yass Lawn Tennis Club also received a donation back as part of and they were charged rates. So we kind of we did ourselves a disservice as a council by just making it a transfer internally of money. These groups were never said, here's your cheque to pay for your rates, now you go and pay your rates. So some of them obviously weren't even aware that they were always getting charged that business rate. It wasn't a residential rate because they never saw it. We did it for them. Having said that, I think this is a way to go forward. gathering this information may not come to the August meeting. The amendment does not stipulate that it comes to the August meeting. I suspect the new council will be looking at it. But I think this is an opportunity to deal with the issues that the Yass Lawn Tennis Club is having, particularly if they're captured by that not-for-profit volunteer-run group, which they are. We have the opportunity to provide a donation back of a percentage of the general rates. And as we heard from them, they understand their obligation, that they do need to pay some rates, but I think in some measure we need to, one, provide some relief, and two, do what our executive is now doing, which is working with them to figure out how to reduce that responsibility in terms of their land holding. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, ready to vote? I'll put the amended motion. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Turner. The amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Okay. 8.1, questions with notice.
I'll move.
Response to them. Any questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at point 7, and why was TCorp not engaged as a potential lender for the Crago Hill project at approximately 2.5 interest rate? I can distinctly remember asking this question at the time because it was my understanding you could get cheap loans from TCorp. And I asked the question, have we looked at TCorp? And the answer was that they weren't interested and the rate would have been a lot higher than the 2.5% from my understanding. So I'm kind of gobsmacked that there's now a different story coming out in other areas of the community. So can we get clarification on this, if possible? I understand it's a complex thing to get this information, but could we please, because I have a distinct memory of us asking about it.
Through Mayor, when we started to consider that we would need a loan for this, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in a previous council meeting, we talked to TCorp about their interest in loaning us, having discussions about a loan. They told me at the time, the person I spoke to told me that the TCorp were not interested in it, and I discussed that we would be going out to and it would have to go out for an expression of interest, and they said they would not be participating.
Thank you. That's my reflection too, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cameron.
Can I ask you a question of Councillor Jones firstly? Can you tell us when what time was that? Because I don't remember you asking that question. Like, was that before this council's time, or?
I believe so, because at the time, are you sure?
Just through Mr. Mayor, it was around about the time that we brought the report to council on the outcome of the process for expression of interest for providing loans.
I'm
So
sorry,
at that time,
it feels so long ago.
yeah, so at that time, that question was,
12 years.
that question was raised, and it certainly was very clear in my mind, because we had the memory, I think it was the Big Four.
Yeah.
And the question was raised, have we approached TCorp, and that the answer was provided at that particular point in time. And
Through you, Mr. Mayor, did TCorp offer a reason?
The words were that, through you, Mr. Mayor, the words that I was provided was that they had a lot of other big projects at the time, probably not good timing.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on, 8.2, question of notice, communication policy. Is a response? Any comments?
yeah, through Mr. Mayor, just a comment. One, following the council election, there'll be a program of reviewing all policies, including some of these. Some of them are mandatory to be reviewed. The one policy that I think we have our own social media policy at the present time. The Department of Local Government has produced a model policy, a social media policy. And that looks like it would be worthwhile adopting rather than trying to go out on our own. It would be probably, it's a little bit more onerous on councils who are managing pages, but I think it's much clearer in terms of what the expectations are. But that'll be a matter for the new council to consider as part of their review of all policies that we have.
Okay. We go on to 9.1, the minutes of the Marlborough Recreation Bin and Focus Group, held on the 6th of June. There's a report and recommendation. I'd like to move the recommendation. Councillor Butler, Councillor Jones.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to note that there is a last dot point that we do need to address. Where it says the removal of railings at current car park be retained for return to. No?
On the recreation ground,
No,
Oh, beg your pardon. It's getting late. Sorry. Stand down.
We're all for
Well, you might run on
Okay, any further questions? I'll put the motion, all those in favour, those against, declare the motion carried. Okay, 92 minutes of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, so on the 20th of June, going through report recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Jones and Councillor Reid, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to note that that was its last meeting, and I just want to put on record my thanks for all members of the committee. Just a wealth of talent, and I've encouraged every single member to reapply in the after the elections, and I hope they continue on with the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'll put the motion in. All those in favour, those against, declare the motion carried. 9.3 minutes of the Marrowbone Playground Project Committee held on the 11th of July. There is a recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Reid. Have a seconder? So, Councillor Jones, thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor. Chairing this particular meeting was very, very challenging. We met in a very public space at the tavern, and it was fully operational. So to say that we were limited to the committee members was, well, let's just say it was a very public meeting. And I acknowledge that we had Mr. David Lewis and Ms. Virginia Rawlings, former councillor, also attend and listen in. And I was very pleased to speak with both of them prior, and also to note their passion, particularly Ms. Rawlings' passion for preservation and retention of the heritage aspects of the site there, including the orchard. And I believe that the option with the proposed amendments to it is certainly going to keep us on track to do just that, to provide a fabulous all abilities play space. It'll have things in it, for example, a flying fox with both an all abilities seat and a regular seat, and what a great opportunity to have kids doing exactly as their peers doing and feeling that experience of flying through the air just like their mates are doing. So I can't wait to see this on the ground. I would like to just note a small change to the minutes where we've suggested that the removal of the railings, we're talking about the white kind of metal railing around the car park there, that was originally from the rec grounds and it was relocated to the site, the school site, so it's not heritage. but it was something of note of the rec grounds, as one member has stated. So if that can be retained and used at the old school site if possible, that is one suggestion of one of the members of the committee. It wasn't resolved by the committee to do so, but just noting that that was a request from one of the members. Thank you.
So I'm taking out this one. Taking out that one and replacing it with that one.
So we don't need to say that it be returned to the rec grounds, because that's actually not what was suggested.
Through you, Mr. Yeah, so take that one out and the amendment is the last
The
point
one
down.
below, so take
Just
all
take
this
that whole
out.
point out.
Yeah.
And is the new amendment is
Is
the
that one?
last point down.
Site, we're just going to turn that to site, if appropriate, as opposed to in an appropriate space. Because I really don't want to hamper the design of a playground based on some old railings. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? Councillor
Just
Turner.
a question, Mr. Mayor. What happens after they consider the old water well and septic? You're gonna sit there and just consider it, or what's the recommendation there that you consider it? You consider removing it, putting it in, do you consider, or just sit there and contemplate your name?
Reuse it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a lot of good advice coming out of the committee that probably isn't warranted in terms of it getting into the operational aspects of, considering whether it can be safely preserved or the safety of it. I'm very much leaving it up to the planning team to sift the chaff.
So through Mr. Mayor, do you then remove it? I mean, if it's a well and if it's a safety risk, you probably might need to remove it, cap it. If it's a septic service that's beyond its use by date, you'd have to replace it.
Can I just suggest, consider, through you, Ms. Mayor. Consider old water and well and septic, maybe just, it's around the safety aspects of it, so
Thank you.
consider,
Consider the safety aspects.
safety aspects of retaining or fencing off or
That
something.
would make that very.
That would you make it happy?
Rather than sitting, considering.
That's my pleasure.
Could be a plunge pool.
Just the surrounding, safety aspects surrounding.
Perhaps not.
Okay, no further comments? I'll put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion carried. 9.4, minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee held on the 9th of July. Read the report and the recommendations. I'd like to move the recommendation, Councillor Cameron, seconder. Councillor Turner.
Just a couple of quick comments.
Councillor Cameron.
Very good meeting. We had the person in charge of the acting manager of waste assets, I think that is his title. He was excellent, 35 minutes talking about waste, it was really good, very beneficial. I'd just like to, as I made a comment earlier, the Sustainability Committee with 9 members was fantastic. They were a joy to work with. We got most meetings done within an hour, unlike this one. And I think we've got a lot of thoughts and encouragement going, and I thought it was a really good group of people who worked hard to try and achieve something. That was very good. Just, I do have one amendment to the minutes. I'm not sure how I do that. There was mention of it's a dot point, and it mentioned a thing called En-ROADS, E-N, full capitals R-O-A-D-S, which needed to be a separate dot point, that's all. It's a global climate simulator, which somebody had brought up and was talking about how you could explore the impact that dozens of policies have on hundreds of climate factors. So it's a simulator, quite an interesting sort of thing that we were discussing at one stage. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Any further comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. That concludes the,
Moving to.
thank you, councillor Turner and councillor Ray.
Yeah. Just pause it.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Pause you.
Those against, declare the motion carried.
Yeah, just read it down.
Bring the bills, close the doors.
Yeah.
I've got a snack, would you like some?
More than that.
Blueberries?
So that's why I was saying double that stage.